You take a personality test. On paper, honestly, question by question, in a room full of other people doing the same thing. A few days later, someone hands you the results. 1 page, written just for you, from your own answers. It says you have a deep need for people to like and admire you, that you doubt yourself more than you let anyone see, that you've got real talent you've never fully used. You read it twice. It's a little unsettling how accurate it feels. Around you, other people are nodding at their own pages too, quietly impressed by how well a stranger just summed them up. Here's the part that should bother you. The exact same page was just handed to every other person in the room. Same words, same order. Not one of them was actually looked at, or scored, or read. This isn't a hypothetical. It happened in 1948 to 39 real college students in a real psychology classroom. And the unsettling part isn't that it worked once. It's that it still works on smart people, on skeptical people, on people who've already been warned. The psychologist running the experiment was named Bertram Forer. He gave his students something called the Diagnostic Interest Blank, a real personality test, filled out by hand. A few days later, he handed each student a personal write-up, supposedly built from their own answers. Except he never scored a single test. Every student got the identical write-up, word for word, lifted and adapted from a newsstand astrology column. 13 sentences, stitched together into 1 page. It said things like, you have a great need for other people to like and admire you. At times you're outgoing and sociable, while at other times you're reserved and cautious. You pride yourself on being an independent thinker and don't accept others' claims without solid proof. Some of your goals tend to be pretty unrealistic. Then he asked one simple question. On a scale of 0 to 5, how accurately does this describe you personally? The average answer came back at 4.26 out of 5. Almost every student in that room walked out convinced a stranger had looked straight into their head from a page copied out of a newspaper. And this is where it gets genuinely strange. It wasn't a fluke, and it wasn't a one-time trick of 1948. Psychologists have rerun Forer's exact setup on fresh groups in new decades again and again ever since. The average score keeps landing in almost the same place, right around 4.2 out of 5. It's one of the most reliably repeatable results in all of psychology, something you can basically count on every time you run it. Even telling people the trick doesn't fully break it. Explain that everyone in the room got the same page and most people will follow the logic and quietly admit the description still kind of sounds like them anyway. Forer had a name for that specific feeling, the fallacy of personal validation. Your mind doesn't just get fooled once. It keeps arguing the case for you after the reveal. Today, the whole effect carries the name of a man who never wrote a single personality test in his life, and who'd already been dead for over 60 years when psychologists started using his name this way. P.T. Barnum, the circus showman. In 1841, Barnum bought a rundown museum in Lower Manhattan and turned it into something closer to a carnival, stuffed inside a building. Stage shows, live animals, human curiosities, and one exhibit that became infamous. A shriveled, monkey torso and fishtail hoax he displayed as a Fiji mermaid. It wasn't real, and reporters at the time even said so. People paid to see it anyway. Ticket sales at the museum tripled within a month. That museum ran for almost 30 years, and the mermaid was never the only draw. There was a man billed as the smallest person alive. A singer, Barnum, turned into a national sensation on a coast-to-coast tour. Curiosities, animals, and stages, all under one roof. By the end of his life, his name was on a full traveling circus, the one that eventually became Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. Barnum's real skill was never any single exhibit. It was building something with a little bit of everything in it, so that whoever walked through the door found the one thing that hooked them personally, and left convinced the whole museum had been built with them in mind. More than a century later, in 1956, a psychologist named Paul Meehl gave that exact trick a name, the Barnum Effect. Have something for everyone, and every single visitor feels like the show was built just for them. Here's the part most people get wrong about that essay. Meehl wasn't writing about psychics, astrologers, or con artists at all. He was writing about his own profession. The essay's real target was fellow psychologists, trained, credentialed clinicians, who were handing out official-sounding personality write-ups that, structurally, worked exactly like a horoscope, vague enough to always feel right, dressed up in clinical language instead of a newspaper column. Meehl's point wasn't that these professionals were lying. He thought most of them sincerely believed their own readings. That's the part that should actually worry you. You don't need a con artist for this trick to work. You just need someone confident, and a page vague enough to survive contact with anyone who reads it. So how does a single page fool almost everyone who reads it? It isn't luck. It's engineering. Whether the person writing it realizes that's what they're doing or not. Psychologists now file it under a broader category. Cognitive biases, the small, predictable glitches built into how every human brain processes information, not just the unlucky or the gullible ones. There are at least 4 separate tricks stacked on top of each other in that one paragraph, and each one works on its own. The first trick is the wording itself. Every line is built broad enough to fit almost anybody alive. Mentalists and skeptics who study this professionally even have a name for one version of it: the rainbow ruse. A single sentence that credits you with a trait and its exact opposite at the same time. Considerate, but with a selfish streak. Confident, but privately insecure. Whichever half happens to be true of you that particular week, the line was already right. The second trick happens inside your own head. Psychologists call it subjective validation. Out of a whole paragraph, maybe 2 or 3 lines land on something genuinely true for you. Your mind locks onto those and quietly glosses over the rest. You don't experience it as 2 good guesses out of 13. You experience it as the whole page being right. The third trick is that flattery beats honesty, every time. Research on this keeps finding the same pattern. People accept a flattering, vague statement far more readily than an unflattering one, even when both are equally generic. Some psychologists call this the Pollyanna principle, a general pull toward believing the nice thing about yourself. A page engineered with a few soft compliments for every mild criticism doesn't just feel accurate, it feels earned. The fourth trick might be the most unsettling of all. It isn't really about the words, it's about who you think wrote them. Studies have found people rate the identical sentences as more accurate when they believe a trained expert built it specifically for them, compared to when they think it came from somewhere random. Change nothing but the source, and the exact same paragraph gets more convincing. Once you know the recipe, you start seeing it everywhere. Psychics and mediums use a version of it called cold reading, and the trade has its own catalog of named moves. There's the one already mentioned, the rainbow ruse. There's fine flattery, a compliment, phrased just carefully enough to win easy agreement. There's the Jacques statement, named after a speech in a Shakespeare play about the stages of a life. A line built around whatever a person's age already makes plausible, like wondering what happened to the dreams you had when you were younger. None of it is mind reading. It's watching your face, keeping what lands, and quietly dropping what doesn't. Horoscopes run on the same shape. So do most viral "which character are you?" quizzes, and plenty of corporate personality tests handed out in job trainings. None of it requires anyone to be lying exactly. Meehl already made that point in 1956. Most of it is built by people who half believe it themselves. The mechanism doesn't need a con artist behind it to work. It just needs a vague enough sentence, and someone willing to read themselves into it, and it hasn't gone anywhere in the age of apps and algorithms. If anything, it scales better now than it ever did on paper. An astrology app, a compatibility quiz, an AI-generated personality report, all of them can hand a version of the exact same trick to millions of people at once, each one absolutely convinced it was written just for them. Same 4 tricks, same paper-thin page, just running at a scale Barnum never had a museum big enough for. So here's the uncomfortable part to sit with. Knowing all of this doesn't fully inoculate you. The next time you read a description engineered to sound personal, flattering, vague, aimed at nobody and everybody at once, some part of you will probably still feel the pull. That isn't a personal weakness. It's just what an ordinary mind does when it's handed a mirror built out of fog. Somewhere, right now, a fresh batch of strangers is getting handed the same page again, in some updated form. A printout, an app notification, a chatbot's reply, and most of them will still feel personally seen by it, knowing the mechanism doesn't shut it off. It just means you finally know what's happening while it happens. The eeriest part was never that the description was wrong. It's that it was written for absolutely no one in particular, and it still felt like it was written only for you.